You ready?
Yeah.
Begin.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you don't have to necessarily raise your hand, but just sort of think about it to yourself. How many of you here consider yourself caffeine addicts? How many of you drink several cups of coffee a day or drink way too many caffeinated sodas? In our society, caffeine is seen as this magical potion that you can take it and substitute for sleep, and you should take it in very large amounts. And as college students, this idea becomes even more appealing to us, especially with a lot of late-night studying sessions and early morning classes. So today I'd like to give you some information about caffeine and the effects it has on your body. And I know I probably won't reduce your intake and consumption of caffeine, but at least you'll be more informed about what you're actually putting into your body. So what is caffeine? A lot of the online medical journals that I researched have basically defined it as a drug that stimulates the central nervous system. It's found naturally in coffee, tea, and chocolate, and of course there's many caffeinated sodas that most of you know about, and you can even buy it in capsule or tablet form as an over-the-counter drug, which I don't recommend, by the way. It derives from about 60 different plant sources, and it's basically known as a very popular stimulant. So some of the purposes you probably know, it makes people feel more alert, increases their attention span, improves coordination, relieves headache, and something that I found interesting was that it is even used as a breathing treatment for newborns who have breathing problems. So the FDA recently produced a study on the U.S. consumption of caffeine, and they found that approximately 400 milligrams of caffeine is consumed per person per day in the U.S. alone. And just to show you what that sort of looks like, I have this little chart. These are different equivalents of 400 milligrams of caffeine. So think about 11 and a half cans of Coke or 2.5 Monsters, and think about that per person per day, and that's just in the U.S. alone. So just by this, you can see how much caffeine we actually consume, and since we consume so much of it, you would like to think that there's some sort of positive effect that it can have on us. So some of the positive effects, obviously you feel more awake, more concentrated, and you feel like you have more energy. It can also relieve headaches for many people. And just these couple of reasons alone are why people consume so much caffeine. Studies have also shown, though, that with moderate consumption, there are some long-term health benefits as well. Medical News today reported that consuming 3 cups of coffee a day, which is considered about a moderate consumption, can reduce the risk of liver cancer by 50%. And a study from the Harvard School of Public Health stated that drinking 2 to 4 cups of coffee a day may reduce the risk of suicide in adults. So we can see that caffeine does provide some positive effects, but on the other side, there are a lot of negative effects that come with it as well. And these negative effects usually show up when it's consumed in very large doses. The Mayo Clinic research group stated that consuming more than 500 to 600 milligrams of caffeine a day can lead to these following symptoms: insomnia, nervousness, restlessness, irritability, upset stomach, fast heartbeat, and even muscle tremors. Now, this list sort of summarizes all of the short-term negative effects that caffeine can have on you, but there's also a lot more serious long-term health effects that it can have on you, and one of the most serious ones I would say is sleep disorders, especially depending on how reliant you become on that caffeine and sort of trying to substitute that for a good night's sleep. It can actually mess up your whole sleep cycle, and then you can develop sleep disorder. And also something that most people forget is that caffeine technically is a drug, and I feel like this is because our society embraces it so much, especially as college students. That's sort of like our culture. We brag about how we didn't get enough sleep and how much coffee we drank to get us through the day. But anyway, since it is a drug, you can build a tolerance to it, and basically that means you need more and more of that drug to reach the benefits that you were getting from it. And an example of this would be if you drank 1 cup of coffee a day and that kept you alert and awake through the day and you were fine, but over time you felt like it wasn't really doing that for you anymore. So you start drinking 2 cups, and then you go to 3, 4, 5, until you're just consuming caffeine in levels that just are really harmful to your body. And you can see that this can become very dangerous. So we can see that caffeine can have both positive and negative effects, and these effects vary greatly based on the individual and sort of like your body type as well, and just sort of like your chemical makeup. Also, your level of consumption of the caffeine, that can also obviously, the more negative effects come when you take it in large doses and not really with moderate consumption. But basically, the moderate consumption is key, and you just sort of have to feel out what that looks like for you. And just see how that goes. And then, so if you're wondering whether or not you should have that extra cup of coffee, you can now relax because you should know a little bit more about what that caffeine will do and won't do for you and your body.